And we are live. I'm going to allow a little bit of time just for people to filter in here from the main betting on sports event. But while we do, just a little bit of housekeeping. And obviously, first of all, a very warm introduction to all of you for joining us for today's webinar. As I say, hosted in conjunction with SBC's fantastic Betting on Sports America event. The topic of today's webinar is hitting moving targets. Quite a nice suggestive title, and it's how can US operators nail the mobile experience. I'll introduce my two colleagues, co-host Brandon and Victor, in a moment. But before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping. So on your screen, you'll notice that there are a couple of different tabs and options. So you've got chat, questions, and polls. And what I say is if you do have any problems with your audio or with the visuals as we're going through it, maybe pop that into the chat and we can try and rectify that for you. Or indeed, if you just want to say hi, hello, more than welcome to do that in the chat too. And then you'll also notice there's questions. So myself and my colleagues, more than happy to stay around for as long as you want afterwards to answer any questions that you might have. So if you do have questions is absolutely the place to put them. And we also have a number of polls running throughout this webinar. So I strongly encourage you to go into the poll now, give us your opinion. It's very much just a temperature check to see where we're all at and what our different opinions are. Your name isn't tied to the answer. We don't have any visibility on how you voted one way or another, and neither do any of the other participants. So by all means, for your candid opinion, like I say, no one is watching out for that. Okay, so without further ado, I'm very happy to introduce my co-hosts for today, and that's Victor Sevcek, Head of Sales and Sports Betting and Gaming here at Xtremepush, and also Brandon Asgierson, Business Development Manager here at Xtremepush, also specializing in the sports betting and gaming vertical, and a US native as well. We'll touch on that, Brandon, in a moment. Victor, I'll come to you first. My usual co-pilot on these webinars that we've kind of hosted throughout the year, quite a number under our belt. Lovely to have you back here again with me.
Yeah, guys, you're all very welcome to join us. This is yeah, we've done many webinars, but this one it's kind of we're tilting it back to the US for this one, and of course it's relevant to the event, the Betting on Sports Americas, you know. So again, everyone's very welcome.
Yeah, and then of course, Brandon, a dyed-in-the-wool New Yorker, keeping a very keen eye on the development of the nascent US landscape.
Indeed I am, Jared. It's great to be here with you both, and thank you so much, and thank you so much for everyone for coming, and I look forward to speaking further on hitting moving targets in the mobile space in the US, and this is really exciting for everyone here.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm kind of conscious that a lot of the people who are joining us maybe are I'm going to give a very quick overview of our critical space and how we're helping operators with their mobile engagement strategy. So who we are, we're a world-leading customer engagement, personalization, and data platform. And we do specialize in helping operators to deliver mobile first, but ultimately multi-channel customer experiences. And that ultimately translates to better service on the customer end, increased revenue on the operator's end, and overall greater longevity and customer retention. You notice on the left, we're fortunate enough this year to be recommended yet again by Gartner, particularly for the sports betting and gaming industry and for mobile marketing platforms in particular. Now, also a couple of awards under our belts. You'll notice the SBC logo there, which we took home last year, and we are in the running again this year. So keep your fingers crossed and your toes crossed and all that jazz for us later in the year. Victor, I'm going to turn to you, and you might just kind of zone in on how we help sports betting and gaming operators in particular.
Absolutely. So yeah, guys, the way Xtremepush helps sports betting and gaming brands, we like to describe it in 4 different pillars to keep it simple. We help you onboard new players onto mobile apps and websites. So from the initial visit to the website or the app download, we send them through a real-time automated journey. So creating an account, making a first deposit, making a first bet. And for drop-offs, you re-engage using a multi-channel strategy through push notifications, email, SMS, pop-ups, and many other channels that we have. Once, of course, a new player is onboarded, then your job is to retain the player. So what we do is we help you with we help you design a strategy of how to message your players in a relevant and personalized fashion based on the games that they're playing, based on their and basically increasing their lifetime value. We help you increase revenue through things like advertising big games and completing conversions, and then of course consolidate all of your marketing efforts and your data into one platform. So you could be using a mixture of third parties, and Xtremepush essentially consolidates all those features for you.
Yeah. So who do we do it for, I guess, is an obvious question. You know, and I think some of the logos in here probably speak for themselves. You know, you can see some of the big names in the industry, both in Europe and also in the US. And I think, given the day that's in it, when today Xtremepush just announced its official partnership with Barstool Sports and Penn National, powering the Barstool Sports sportsbook app for mobile engagement. Brandon, on the ground in the US, can you just speak to how well the Barstool Sportsbook app has been received? Because I think therein lies the true value of mobile and how well it's been received.
Yeah, definitely, and it's being received very well over mobile, and it's also due to COVID, as everyone on the webinar knows, adopting the mobile audiences and going to mobile has been the main type of footprint in the U.S. and Barstool has done such a good job of tying in their content from their original media company with things like the Overs Club and very interesting content abilities, and tying that into their sports book to make a very unique experience that many other operators can't do because of the Barstool brand. So Penn's positioning in acquiring Barstool has given them such leverage within the market with reaching out to millennials. And it is going to benefit definitely in the long run. And I know this is a webinar positioned for operators, but as you could see on our client list, we are deep into engagement in lotteries and daily fantasy sports. As on the list here, we have DraftKings, we have North Carolina Lottery, Pollard Banknote, Arizona Lottery, Vermont Lottery, which isn't actually listed. So this webinar will not only be positioned for operators, it will be positioned for lotteries, daily fantasy sports, and operators all in one. So it's great for everyone in the webinar.
Yeah, and that's well said, because I think, Victor, if I just turn to you quickly, I mean, running the full gamut of this industry and all that it encompasses, you in particular, you've seen so much development of the mobile, you know, as its own property, as its own distinct offering, if you like, within a sports book or a lottery's arsenal in Europe. You know, can you just speak for a moment of just how important mobile has started to become?
Absolutely. So there's always a number of challenges with mobile in Europe. There's like not every operator has a mobile app, but then when the mobile app is released, obviously a lot of the focus is on the mobile app, and there's certain features like in-play betting and real-time betting that are only really possible through the mobile. It's not that they're impossible on desktop, but when you bring people, when people go to a bar to watch sports, and the popularity of the mobile device as well in general is something that we're going to cover. So yeah, we're glad to bring the experience that we've got in Europe to the US now these days.
So to give everyone a quick shake-up of sort of where we're going to go with this webinar, we're going to start off trying to quantify the size of the mobile betting opportunity. And it's important, we believe, to the growth overall of the US industry. We'll look, yes, at states where mobile betting is currently possible now, but we're also going to maybe gaze into the crystal ball and look at how this is likely to develop over the coming years, especially in light of the pandemic and all that's meant for physical casinos and sports books. Victor is going to lean in heavily on what we can learn about mobile betting from Europe, some of the best practices, particularly around UX and UI for optimized mobile experiences. And then lastly, we're going to round out with some of what we believe, and from what we've seen, are the most high-value mobile engagement use cases. So covering acquisition, bet stimulation, in-play wagering, player reactivation, and also churn prevention. Okay, Victor, you did a little bit of a deep dive into some of the statistics. So you might just quickly talk us through, you know, the size of the opportunity available here.
So I tried to make like an educated prediction based on multiple sources of basically the size of the opportunity, and I think many have done an exercise like that. And there's there's plenty of content out there on the internet where to start. But I thought a good one was the Morgan Stanley prediction, and the prediction is the sports betting. So the U.S. sports betting market is expected to reach around 8 billion in revenue by 2025, and that's 10 times more than this year, which was a figure of 800 million. And what the estimation is actually based on is if, for example, only 22 states participate, which is, of course, what's happening right now, then there's going to be 2.5 billion. And if every single state is going to legislate sports betting, which is probably not going to happen because of the kind of the challenges that are presented, it's going to be 15 billion. And judging by some of the results, I suppose, that we've seen already. So don't forget that in New Jersey, in 2019, 84% of bets were placed online. And it's going to continue roughly in that trend, because I don't imagine there's going to be bookies on every. There will be retail sports betting operations, but I don't imagine there'll be bookies on every single corner like in the UK and in Ireland. Yeah. So it's going to largely remain mobile and largely grow towards the. Largely remain online and grow towards mobile. I suppose the other thing is comparing it to the European market, which in 2018 it was generated 22 billion in revenue, and 40% of that was sports betting. So if you kind of compare the size and the population size of the two continents, I think 8 billion is a good guess. But in saying that, we could be well off on the small side, actually, in fairness.
Yeah, I think so. It may indeed end up being a gross underestimation of the opportunity there. So let's take those figures, but then, in light of what we're seeing, the current trends and the shift towards the use of mobile devices as the preferred method of placing a bet. Victor, talk us through what we're seeing here with some of these slides. There's no doubt about it, mobile use is on the rise.
So this is a slide illustrating the European mobile device and desktop usage split, but it wouldn't be much different in the US. And actually, I imagine if you see, it's very, very close, and the prediction's very, very close in 2020. And I wouldn't be surprised if mobile has, for the first time, slightly surpassed desktop already in amount of online bets placed. And I think there's obvious things driving this, like there's the popularity of the mobile device, there's like popularity of sports in general, and then there's so the real time. So something we're going to cover in the next few slides is the popularity of real time bets, and of course the mobile device is exactly where you want to be placing those.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at sort of the average age of mobile bettors, right now it's early 30s, so 31, 32. But compare that to the average age of the physical casino player, that's somewhere in the early 40s or indeed the mid 40s. I think the key here, Brandon, is that the average age of the mobile bettor is falling, and that's in line as the next generation of bettors matures and comes of legal age. Brandon, as a US citizen who is one of those people who is now, of the legal age to gamble, to play online, can you just speak from your own personal experience, the importance of mobile as the brand in the hand?
Yeah, definitely. And as you guys know, it's a very exciting time in the US. So there's going to be a substantial amount of audiences flowing to mobile as legalization passes through the US. The reason being is that on your mobile, you're so accessible to apps. So you will see, I think, in my opinion, to Europe, an even higher percentage, if we're looking at this chart, with audiences on mobile due to the fact that it's so easily accessible to actually be on the mobile placing bets. And to Jer's point, people my age are very acceptable of mobile as we've grown up with these devices. So you have to look at that from a standpoint and capture these audiences, as to our point before of Penstool's acquisition of Barstool. Capturing these audiences is going to put operators' foot further within the industry, and capturing the audience's data will even enable them in the future to really drive a lifetime great experience for users.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think to underline it, really what we're saying is crucial as mobile is now, that is going to ramp up over the coming years as the demographics catch up with us. Victor, I mean, just quickly here, just to sort of, I guess, prove the point, and it's relevant, I guess, in light of Barstool Sports content-led strategy. You've pulled through some of the average, where different age groups get their news from, and how they're consuming their news. I think it makes for interesting reading in light of this conversation.
And it is these percentages, they're actually US stats, but as you said yourself, they're where do adults get their news from? And it's like a breakdown of ages. So you can clearly see the difference between the older and the younger generations here. And don't forget that 45% of sports bettors are between age 23 and 34. That's stat there on the right. And the point here is, I suppose, where people get their news from. So if you get your news about sports, then you're more or less getting educated about sport. And if you're getting educated about sport, you're going to have an opinion. And of course, you're not going to place bets without an opinion. So it kind of it really speaks to our point, and especially because publishers are becoming sports betting operators a lot of the time, and then you see some of the kind of deals that are happening between operators and publishers as well is quite important. Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think I think it's easy for us office people to kind of imagine life, or it's hard for us to imagine life without a laptop. But I think a lot of kids, a lot of the newer generations these days, they get their laptop for college, and then it's new, but then 4 years later they chuck it in the bin and they use just their mobile device. So I wouldn't be surprised if that split is only going to get much higher with time,
So I guess the final sort of part of the puzzle here in talking about the importance of mobile is the topic of in-play betting. To tee this up, Brandon, I'm going to come to you on this as sort of our US sports expert. The in-play opportunity available with mobile, just to spell it out. So we know that in Europe, operators typically see 70 to 80% of their revenue coming from in-play betting activity. And there's every reason to think that US operators will experience something similar if they're able to provide that mobile offer, and may in fact exceed it given the nature of the US sports, the stop-start, multiple periods, very clearly defined passages of play. But Brandon, mobile is the key here, looking at the time you actually have to place a wager.
Yeah, definitely. And if you look at the left of the time span graph here, you could see that's more of your traditional betting. So you would have line wagers, over-unders, and maybe daily or weekly fantasies. And if you move towards the right in the red area, this is where the statistics of the 23 to 33-year-olds are going to be engaging and placing wagers. And as to Jer's point, 70 to 80% of most operators' wagers in Europe we're very reliant on in-play wagers, and being able to communicate effectively with your audiences in real time is going to be paramount for operators due to the fact that they have such little time. If you look at placing a bet, you're not going to have many audiences placing bets on a desktop in real time. People are watching the game, they're on their phone. And if you're investing in your product, which everyone has spoke about at Betting on Sports America is the paramount thing, you're going to want to be integrating real-time engagement. You're going to want to be communicating effectively in a personalized way so that users really have an enjoyable experiences. And this will increase your lifetime value. And touching on points in unique ways is going to be really valuable as well. So if we look at last weekend's football games, look at the Panthers and the Vikings, a push with a minute left, and Joey Sly is kicking a field goal that he actually missed. Operators would have pulled in a lot of audiences as maybe they can ice the kicker and send a push saying, the Vikings have iced Joey Sly, come in and check out our odds. And it would obviously be a lot more personalized than that due to the fact that you don't want to be spamming your audiences with messages. So it's really interesting, this new in-play wagers and the percentage of revenue that in the EU that it's generating.
Yeah, and as we say, mobile is going to be the key to it. Okay, so looking at where mobile betting is possible now and how this will develop. Okay, look, I think all of us here, we all understand where the legislation is, the nuts and bolts of it as it stands. I think, Victor, talking about this over the last couple of months, you and I both think, and we've had several conversations with people outside the organization, we all kind of think that the impact of COVID will be to kind of open the eyes of state legislators that actually the on-premise only offering or legislation, there are some big flaws to it, and COVID has kind of exposed that.
Mm-hmm. Because see, like sports betting, well, it's legal in 22 states, and then mobile and online is legal in 15. There is challenges to those. Like there's a lot of challenges, like in some states where, okay, you have to register on-prem inside the casino, and then there's a lot of geolocation challenges that kind of just get in the way. So as it stands, there's actually only 5 states where you can completely bet online from anywhere, and if you guys, if you want to check them out, there's the Action Network provides some good news on these, and they kind of lay it out very well. But just speaking to your point, Jer, is of course it's like if we're limited, we can't go to casinos to place bets, and people aren't going to be showing up to register at the till anyway. So yeah. The other thing, there was an interesting point I read about the time it takes the legislator to collect taxes is actually much faster in sports betting than it could be in iGaming. So that could nudge them as well.
Yeah, I think what you will see is that as corners, more information comes out about the state of New Jersey and just how well that's been able to perform because of the way its legislation has been set up. I think you'll have more and more states sort of eyeing that up, thinking, okay, that is clearly the model which we need to replicate. And I think we will even see that in some of the more conservative states who've sort of just towed their water in the legislation just to get a feel for it early on. So, Victor, if I come to you again, then again, like this is a topic you and I have spoken about quite a lot in the last couple of years, and that's the evolution of mobile betting. And I think just to frame this conversation, initially mobile was just seen as a sort of a straightforward extension of the desktop experience. But as corners, we've all become a little bit more mobile centric. Operators are now looking at mobile as its own strategic part of the overall plan. It has to be sort of treated, yes, in the context of all of your channels, but it's its own thing with its own unique set of rules, challenges, and opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and first there was just the frameworks of the website and in the mobile app, and then all the kind of native mobile apps started coming out. And I think if you then look at Europe and what's happening there is like as players get more educated, they become more transient, they start shopping around for different bonuses, and then the likes of the UK has an average of 3 different accounts. So each player has an average of 3 different accounts with 3 different operators. So it kind of shows you the importance of making your player experience superior, and that includes simple things like the amount of clicks that it takes to place a bet, which has always been important. And one of the things we were talking about actually is the biometric login, so the fingerprint login on your mobile device, because if you have 3 different accounts and you're trying to place one of those real-time bets that Brandon you were talking about there, it's like you have 30 seconds, and if you're a responsible person, you have 3 different pins on 3 different apps. And if you have that, then you're guaranteed to forget them, get frustrated, and it can be just as easy as that fingerprint, and that could be the difference between a player selecting your app over others. They just find it easier to use, it's simple things like that. I think another point here is like you can learn from Europe is like offering plenty of bonuses, and there, we put a question mark there because I know me and you, Jer, have discussed extensively in other webinars about is that a good thing that in Europe the operators have started or they can over rely on soccer, and they started to over rely on bonusing, and to the extent that the regulator gets involved and starts putting rules on it, like, okay, you're only allowed to send 1 bonus to a player throughout their entire lifetime. And that's why I think the US can learn from that and more or less try to focus. And they have the advantage of more popular sports, so try to focus more on personalization to improve the player experience rather than attracting people with bonuses. I think like enhancing personalization of the display of the mobile. So when you do open the mobile app, what do you see first? Obviously, you're restricted to the size of the screen. Like, I mean, the phones these days are getting pretty big, and like this one, the phone I got, it's like it weighs about twice more than my last one. Screen is much bigger, but I got used to it so quickly. But having said that, there's still a restricted amount of options on the screen, so you have to be careful about what you're displaying. A lot of operators are using like algorithms to see to kind of check player behavior and display on the screen exactly what you want to play, and that's very smart, you know. And if for us, for Xtremepush as a kind of player engagement platform that is capable of sending push email and SMS, we can actually get access to those feeds, and we can include them in our in marketing campaigns. Yeah. And then, of course, the point that we covered already, the in-play betting. So that's proven so successful in Europe that the US just has to emulate it.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, even just to draw a line under then, some of what you see is the touchstones for a good UI and for a good UX, and then we'll show some sort of concrete examples of exactly what we mean as well.
Sure. So I mean, the first one is there's pretty simple points. So like, I mean, knowing your customer, and we don't just mean knowing your customer as a sports bettor, but we mean that if there's a couple of different skins per state, then there's only going to be like 3 or 4, let's say, operators operating in one state, and the leaders of your brand, they've set aside some kind of unique approach. So your brand is going to be unique, and it's their responsibility to kind of communicate that to the rest of the team, so that every graphic designer and everybody on the team just knows exactly the customer that they're targeting. Too many stats, so you don't want to, like, I mean, the sports betting as an industry is actually quite stat heavy, and like it's data heavy, and US sports are even more data heavy than soccer in Europe. But you don't want to be displaying large lines across your mobile app, and they'll just confuse players. And of course, there's a lot of education to be done in the US too. You have to do your competitor research. So I mean, if there's going to be an average of 3 accounts per player, you can't be too radically different from your competitor, because then if your app is laid out in a completely different way, and players are shopping around for odds, they might find your mobile app a little bit difficult to use as well. I think because it's so new, you need to take your team out and go beyond the lab testing. So get out of the office. I know it's not possible right now, but get out of the office, go to a bar, do some people watching of how do people actually place real-time bets during the different sports that are happening. Maybe do some competitions with the crew. You know, it's like, okay, who can make the most money in the next hour, and is buying the drinks, you know, and you'll get to test the functionality of the mobile app that way. Keep trying new things, and actually we have a tip as well. So as a messaging platform, you need to use what we call deep linking. So if you're advertising the upsell of an odd in the middle of a game, so halftime somebody gets a push message, make sure that when the player clicks the push message, they go directly to the bet slip. They don't just end up on the confusing homepage and forgetting what was that bet tip again, you know?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And again, it speaks to the overall value of mobile, which is speed. So again, the quicker you can make it for the player to get to the bet that they want to place, the better ultimately it is for all parties concerned. Okay, to look at a couple of concrete examples, and I'm conscious of time here, and I know people want to get back to the other events that are running, and so we'll talk about some use cases in a second. But just, I guess, Victor and Brandon, to look at some of the nice kind of features we like here in this streamlined layout.
Sure. So, like, I mean, you can see on the left there the FanDuel kind of example. They have the sports laid out, and see how, if you look at the layout carefully, you can see how easily then those algorithms that we were talking about of displaying the sports that are relevant to each player, you can move those around very easily. The ratio of the screen is perfect for what they're displaying. See, the lines on the right there, they're pretty confusing. Like that would only be attractive to a player that can basically beat your sports book. Like they'll love to see something like that and see the differences. But and they're the guys using the desktop, but most people placing bets, they're just having a laugh, you know. They're having some fun. And then you can see there at the bottom, it's just an example of a bad kind of airline booking experience. And if you put these big boxes in front of someone, this is the size of the screen that you'll be looking at to actually make that experience make sense, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to your point, Victor, to kind of back to that last slide, knowing your competitor, to point out the elephant in the room in the U.S., it's going to be the offshore market. So everyone is very comfortable with their offshore sports book, whether that be a mobile or a paperhead, type of startup. And if you look at the bottom right there, where it's more of an airline onboarding, but if you could imagine a phone line that has very little product invested in it, and that's what a lot of the offshore operators are currently doing. They don't have beautiful mobile functionality as FanDuel does. It's just a list of lines. It's very difficult to get to. So operators putting themselves forward with bonuses, having a great UX is going to really pull away from the offshore market. And effectively, operators are going to want that more than anything. So to your point, Victor, they're going to be competing with 2 or 3, and in my opinion, I think that one of them will be an offshore because they're very comfortable with it. They have the idea that they may not be able to pay tax. They can pay a guy in cash or through a third-party thing like Venmo. Delivering a user experience with bonuses, good onboarding experiences is going to enhance the operator's lifetime value. And that's really where everyone should be looking to invest their time.
Yeah. I mean, a phenomenal point, Brandon. And I think it brings us on nicely to one of the key weapons here in an operator's arsenal, and that is push notifications. Push notifications, by the way, for those watching, you don't need an app to send a push notification to a mobile device. If you've got a mobile responsive website, you can absolutely still send push notifications. It's not an app exclusive functionality. Victor, these are kind of these are the top 4 typical use cases we would advise people to roll out with us. And it kind of nudges a player right the way through the funnel. Like, this is definitely something that your offshore book does not have access to. So it's kind of a key part of the strategy, I think.
Mm-hmm. So these are all push notifications use cases, and they are the main ones. So it's like the first one, the KYC and onboarding. That's a good example of an onboarding use case. So it's like bringing someone from the download of the app to becoming a full player. And of course, you could have downloaded the mobile app on the bus and then abandoned it because you only have a couple of minutes and there's a couple of steps. So you have to choose how to re-engage with that player. And obviously, the best way to do that is in real time. So, hey, if you complete your deposit, you get X, and that's one use case. And then of course, once they're onboarded, one of the biggest use cases, easy to set up as well with us, is advertising big games. And you can, in Europe, for example, you can broadcast these ones to almost all players because they're very, it's just soccer there. But in the States, you want to be splitting between the popular sports, and you want to be displaying big games according to the sport that your players are playing, and that of course leads to more app opens, more bets placed. Then you want to be doing some in-play examples. So out of those players that responded to the advertisement of the game, the ones that placed the bet, you might be able to upsell a bet at halftime, and an interesting bet at halftime to those same players. And then of course, when people abandon your app, or the main problem with mobile apps is, like, people download them and then they play around with them, and then their usage decreases, and over time their phone runs out of space and they uninstall the app. So what you need like a recurring campaign strategy for people who have kind of they've more or less stopped using the app. So let's say you need a different strategy for someone who hasn't opened the app in 7 days, 14 days, 21 days. Maybe it's time to deliver a bonus after a while as well,
Yeah. I think even just quickly on this, I think for me, given the nature of US sports and how of sports betting and how new it is to a lot of customers who maybe getting set up an account for the first time, chances are they're not going to complete all of the KYC obligations, whether that's identification, bank accounts, etc., in one go. They're probably going to do it in a couple of different sessions, and that's where push notifications can really come into play, nudging them through that funnel step by step. That little kind of arm on the shoulder, or a little tap on the shoulder that says, "Hey, by the way, you've still got one or two little hoops to jump through before you can get set up and placing a bet." So a really key part of the mobile strategy. Okay, Brandon, you might then take us through kind of another channel which may be less familiar to people, and that's in-app messages, or indeed on-site messages. Again, if you've got a mobile responsive website, works just the same really in lots of ways. And that's the in-app, sort of something that's triggered in the middle of a session. So once you've actually gotten them to the site.
Yep, definitely. And to Jer's point, that they don't actually have to be opted in. So these are based on real-time events. So your users by default are going to see these messages. So the first one we're seeing here is a deposit nudge, a deposit reminder with a very personalized balance at a good time. Let's say Sunday morning campaign. Good morning, it's Sunday. I would like to see you, put $15 into your account, Brandon. Things that personalize your messages are going to put you way further than your competitors, and doing it in a beautiful, nice way of either Sunday morning, or for basketball, people that are betting with basketball, maybe doing it during the week, excuse me, and doing it in a personalized way is going to put you way further. And things like reminding users while they're in their app, maybe for the first time on account creation, through our segmentation engine, to Victor's point before, you can identify if that's a new user and welcome them with a welcome bonus. So again, to the operators on the offshore side, they don't have product capabilities as these operators are going to have. And walking them down a welcome stage is going to be vital to their customer experiences. And being able to identify high value players on the book are going to be paramount for operators, due to the fact that we see very high value players are very interested in casinos, and you could cross-sell them if they're a high-value player to go start maybe playing slots, playing poker. And we also have an alert here. Again, you don't have to opt in for any of these, or you would see you could update users with daily deals and very personalized bonuses on what they're betting on. So betting, having users see messages of what they're betting on, and giving them a little leeway of free bets is really adding to the trusting, personalized experience. And this kind of ties into your next slide too, Jer, if you click it. And you can use the app inbox for very, very nice welcome journeys. If this is daily fantasy sports, you can use the app inbox for things like teaching players how to do your weekly deposit, have it reoccurring, and actually how to play on your app. Because I know there's a number of unique apps out there that are very unique, and they're new. So players aren't going to be accustomed to doing that, and walking them through maybe a video or a short explanation on the app inbox. And if you can identify, your audiences, such as males and females, age, low age and a high age, things like if you watch women in betting in North America, SBC's Digital Summit in the summer, they say women are taking a grasp of a very casual way of betting, and walking them down and showing them how to bet is going to be vital. And also, if you take the bar of soap example, my father walks into a store, he's going to buy a bar of soap. I'm going to buy a shower gel. Very different type of players, and you want to be able to educate your players in the right way based on their age, their gender, and their preferences.
There you go. People didn't think they were going to get sanitary advice as well as mobile betting advice, Brandon. But there you are. So I guess to round it off, and maybe people are looking at some of these use cases. Okay, well, where is that information coming from? Where do you get the data for that personalization? So at a basic level, if you're working with Xtremepush, we're collecting user activity across your website and across your app through our own proprietary SDK, or software development kit, which is very simply deployed through a line of code, and we collect that behavioral data. But if your sportsbook or your casino is powered by something like SB Tech or SG Digital, if you're working with Optimove or Segment or any of the logos I guess you see listed here, and some others as well that aren't listed, so if there's one not mentioned, by all means do get in touch with us. Any data that you've got on the back end can then be leveraged and pushed out front and center, so it's able to personalize the message and make it that little bit more relevant. And so you're segmenting campaigns based on who your audience is and what their unique individual interests are, maybe also their value level. So are they a VIP? Are they a once in a while better, or are they an everyday sort of enthusiast? Okay. We're kind of running to the end of our time, guys. So we're very happy to throw the floor open to any questions that you might have. By all means, go ahead. If you are interested in learning a little bit more about what we do and how we do it and the value we can add, by all means, do get in touch with Brandon or Victor via LinkedIn, or you can send us an email, info@Xtremepush. So while we're just waiting a moment maybe for any questions that have come in, I might just quickly run through some of the polls. So we asked, will the pandemic accelerate the growth of mobile and remote betting? And, overwhelming response, 100% came back and said that, yes, states will realize that on-premise, only has its sort of limitations, really, and that they will need to rethink the initial strategy around that. Doesn't surprise me. I guess, guys, that's something we didn't anticipate. Maybe 100% of the respondents would go that way, but I guess it's something that we feel strongly ourselves.
Definitely. And I feel like it is accelerating. And due to the fact, you look at Iowa, they had on-premise registration. Come January 1st, they've been accepting remote registration now due to the pandemic. So things like that. And if you look at New York at the end of 2020, it's being pushed highly by legislation to legalize sports betting due to the market being so large in New York. So I'm 100% is a high number, but I would definitely say, the pandemic accelerated the growth of mobile and remote betting, and even Massachusetts is the same as New York.
Yeah. And then secondly, we asked, how important do you believe mobile betting will be to the growth of the industry in the US sort of as a whole? And again, wasn't expecting it, but 100% of respondents believe that it's crucial. Personally, that doesn't surprise me, because we understand, from working with brands here in Europe and those in North America who do have a mobile strategy, how important it is. But yeah, I guess 100% is surprising. We also asked Victor, are you currently using or researching push notifications as part of your online player strategy? Interestingly, there was actually quite a lot of people. 67% of respondents say that they're not actually currently using it. I guess, Victor, I know what you'd say to here. They need to really strongly consider that.
Yeah, one reason why you might not be researching it is because you already maybe send push notifications. But one of the things we touched on briefly during the webinar, but I know it's in the name for us being Xtremepush, but we have at least another 8 different engagement channels. And it's like, you could be sending simple push, and simple push does work, big game push, it does work. But then when you're sending people through those same journeys, those same increasing lifetime value journeys, you do want to be putting in other channels. So people do opt out of push notifications. So you want to be utilizing email, SMS, you want to be utilizing the web channel as well. So it's actually not just push that we bring. But then if you don't have push and you're not interested in push messaging, you are making a mistake there, because it is the most crucial channel for the mobile app.
Yeah. And then lastly, we asked, where does mobile engagement as a distinct strategy rank for you right now? And again, I guess we're quite polarizing today in our polls. 100% say that it's a tier 1 priority. Okay, I guess that probably does surprise me. But I'm sort of delighted to see it. And I think it just speaks to our point, and again, why we put this webinar together. Mobile is, we think, the future of the US industry, and it's only a matter of time before all of those states with legislation, sort of roll in behind it. Okay, so guys, I guess that kind of brings us to the end of our time. Again, huge, sincere thank you to everyone who has joined us, watching it live, or indeed if you're watching it back on demand. Thank you so much for your time. Victor, Brandon, anything to add before we sign off?
No, thanks for your time, guys. Hope you really enjoyed the webinar, and as Jer mentioned, if you want to get in touch, please do.
Thank you guys so much for everyone attending. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.